And first, let's discuss. Let me start with the lady before we discuss on the way forward with this, and of course the role of the mainstream media, owing to the fact that most blogs which have very high visibility. I mentioned Nairobi News, owned by NMG. We have Mpasho, they are owned by mainstream media houses. So we'll talk about that. But first, let's talk about interventions.
Yeah. Because the space is so wide, we can only have so many cops out there. Not only is the Communications Authority one of the regulators, there are other distinguished institutions that deal with occurrences online, you know, the Media Council and others dealing with hate speech and the like. That's one intervention, one legitimate intervention. However, I think much remains to be said for two other critical stakeholders, the consumer and the content creator, the content generator. And some of the interventions that could come in here for the consumer, for example, is education and awareness, that do not believe anything that you see online and pass it on. Question it, trust, but verify before you set up another ball of fire rolling inadvertently. That's one. Then on the content creators, as we said, anybody today can blog. Anybody today can generate content if you witness something or you develop something. A heightened sensitivity needs to be brought through education for the content creators, that what you bring up should be something edifying. It should be something reasonable. It should be protecting and preserving the integrity and the credibility of others, so that if you seal that loophole with the content creator and educate the consumer right there, then I think you really raise the standard for everybody, and it leaves the other institutions in between fighting only what is left out, because we have a responsible blogosphere, people operating in that space.
All right. Yeah, very, very well said. Yeah. And before we proceed, need for clarification here. It's on now that you have faced this, it's on Twitter, and someone tweeting you directly says, I hope the mass issuance of titles on 1st April is not an April Fool's Day joke. Just to clarify that, because it's very important. That's how information flies.
Thank you very much. Actually, it's a coincidence that it runs on April Fool's Day, but actually it's indeed true. What we're doing is we normally have media ads every last week of the month, both on NTV and the other media channel that we use. So we'll do the last week at full advertisement, then we have the event happening on the last weekend, which happens to be the 1st of April. So it's a coincidence, but
it's not
watch out.
Right.
It will be on NTV, probably we'll do AM Live, will be on other channel. So to all our buyers out there, please watch out. It's a big day for us. We also need to inform the consumers. I mean, we've had a lot of this hullabaloos, how many titles were issued last year, most of them were fake and all that. So even as buyers out there, we are not really sure if I'm buying a plot somewhere, which is the genuine title from which one isn't. So we want to use the same platform to just inform the consumers.
All right, and that comes to the next topic of discussion, which will be our last. What do we do going forward? How do we stop this? Is it even possible to stop? And probably I start from Majani. Is it even possible?
Yes, I think it's definitely possible. Like I told you, I've been mentioning that thing of looking for hits. I feel like that is one major incentive for all this crap that we're seeing online. I think a lot of bloggers, people who own blogs, need to make their writers stop having hits as the be-all and end-all. How do they do that? I feel like, right now what happens is the writer is told, do your writing and also look for the hits. You get, I think those two jobs can be separated. It's like a newspaper editor telling the writer, okay, you write the story and then go sell it up chini. Definitely that will be a conflict of interest. So what bloggers need to do, they need to say, okay, we have these writers and we have marketing directors, you see, whose job, so the bloggers, the writer's job is simply to write good quality stories.
Okay.
And that is what they are hired and fired on. Okay. You get? Whether your story has hits or not is only the issue of the marketing director. You see, the marketing manager.
Okay.
So, that is one thing. Then number two, I also think a lot of the bigger blogs like Gafla need to take the lead now, because there's no excuse now for having poor quality blogs. We have investors on our side and we have clients on our side as well. We have been invested in as blogs, and we need to use that money to improve ourselves. And like I told you, the advertisers will also follow the good quality blogs, and after the money follows the good quality blogs, then the other smaller blogs will also copy the general strategy.
Okay.
It's only, I mean, he has said everything, but it's only natural as the industry matures and it grows. It's only natural that you will find that people now will focus on quality, and then when other people see that the money is following blogs that actually have high traffic, and then they have good quality content, this will stop. In essence, everyone is selling eyeballs. If all the eyeballs go to the websites that have good quality content, is a wrap for these other people. And then also it's also something that is important is also advertising shillings. If advertising shillings can be seen to be going to blogs and platforms that have good quality content as a first, and then what is it called, a large audience second, then that is going to have whatever, or the bloggers will get the impetus to actually invest in fantastic content, because they'll know that I will actually be able to attract and retain advertising shillings if I do
good work.
Fantastic quality.
In other words, you're saying blogs also need to be set up like they have set up theirs. NTV has set up, NMG has set theirs as proper business and enterprises, where you have the writer, then you have the advertiser, the sales and everything. Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah. Right. And then also another element is that people at the moment we don't have a lot of what I could say a lot of professional bloggers. There's the people who have made it and are doing it well are very few. So in essence, once that pool increases, if we have about 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people who are actually earning a living and are really, really fantastic. Of course, you won't have kids wanting to write content that is inflammatory or anything like that. They'll want to be the Bikozulus and the Magungas of this world. Okay. They'll want to write that kind of quality, fantastic content.
All right. As we wind up, and I'll give you an opportunity from the lady, talk to us also about the role of the mainstream media in shaping and correcting this mess, if at all it's there, because most of the time, like they mentioned, when this happens, they now have to hitch a ride on the mainstream media and say, help us do this. So talk to us about that.
Okay. The mainstream media has the benefit of history, time, and even a planned and structured training process, which unfortunately the virtual space does not necessarily afford. So I think mainstream media needs to step up in terms of leadership and mentorship and sponsorship of that space, so that when people do not make it into the mainstream media and have to go into the alternative space, they still go in there at a high standard. Okay. It doesn't mean that anything that doesn't make it to mainstream will obviously make it into the alternative space, and mainstream media.
And does that include also owning blogs for the mainstream media?
Absolutely, and they already do. I mean, like NMG has one of the biggest, blogs with a huge followership. Because unfortunately, the space we are in right now, there's a mistaken belief that if somebody is popular on the blogosphere, for example, they are credible. And the consumer needs to be aware that it doesn't follow that because you have a big following, you're credible and everything you post there is truthful. Okay. Separate the issues.
They're totally different.
Yes.
All right.
Totally different.
Okay. Edwin.
Mine on the way forward is for we, the business community. I think it's about time we embrace social media, mostly for the positive that it brings. I think I'd like to see most of us going to the likes of Gafla, who already have a following and probably running our ads with them because, as they've said earlier, it's a business. And if I'm not making profits for the right reasons, I'd rather make profits for the wrong reasons.
But someone will argue, let me stop you, that when you go straight to Majani, then you're compromising what they would have said against you.
I'm talking about positive advertising. For example, I
Just
have an event coming up on the 1st of. Right now, the notion out there is blogging is bad. I don't associate my business with blogging.
With blogs,
but we've mentioned social media is here to stay, and we can't run away from it. And they have a massive, they have a massive following. So for business communities, it's about that time we sat down just the same way I'll advertise on
Mainstream
NTV.
media, yes.
I can as well choose them as an alternative advertisement medium and pass my information through them. By doing so, of course, I'll empower those credible ones, and by doing so, those who are still doing fishy things will step up. Number two is now for you, the consumer out there, as Mercy said earlier, will not stop you from receiving this information, be it credible or not. The most important thing is, what do you do thereafter? Read. You have the option of either believing and trusting whatever you read, but most importantly, verify. Trust but verify. Yes, I received that thing in one of the WhatsApp groups that I'm in. Before I forward 10 other WhatsApp groups to the 10 million of us on WhatsApp, the first key important thing is, have I really verified the source? And also, as you forward the negative news, also be quick to forward the positive news.
If it turns out it was false,
yeah, okay, tell guys,
Hey.
I'm sorry. Listen, I'm sorry. I didn't really verify. But the most important thing is for you, the consumer out there, take time to verify, because by just forwarding those fictitious WhatsApp forwards and message and all that, someone somewhere is losing their job, a business is going down, our image out there as a business community is being tainted badly. We're actually chasing off potential investor.
All right. Well said. And Majani, as you respond, do you think them coming to you, for example, if you're an outspoken blog, compromises the quality of your negative article on the advertiser? I know it's
The thing is, though, like, honestly speaking, I don't find anything negative to say about them to begin with. So
No, if at all there was a negative thing to be said, for example, you're accusing a bank, like the banks are going down, they're about to go down, you know, and you have that information, it's about to go down. But because they advertise with you, now you'll not be talking about to go down. It's compromising the negativity.
now I think that's a whole different issue to do with free media powered by advertisers, and I think that's a huge discussion for another day, because now that's an issue of free media that's subsidized by advertising versus paid media subsidized by subscribers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And finally, as you respond also, someone is asking the bloggers who are out there who have not joined the Bloggers Association, what are the requirements? Perhaps just say that as you give us your final comment.
To register to be a BAKE member, basically all you need to do is just go to bake.co.ke and register. You'll be vetted, and then you need to pay 1,000 shillings as a registration fee.
Membership fee?
Joining fee, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, to join.
Right.
I just want to say three things, actually. In the same way, there are bloggers who do negative content, or rather what businesses perceive to be negative content. There are also bloggers who write good and fantastic content. I just think that it is unfair to lose our breath every time there's negative connotation to a story. Just because something is not favoring you does not mean that just because someone within an industry writes something that is negative to you does not mean there's something wrong with the entire industry. Maybe there's something wrong with your company, maybe there's something wrong with that particular individual, and it's something that can be dealt with at that perspective.
All right.
Also, there are these negative connotations to anonymity.
My director is on my ear. We really have to end. So my
sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I have so many things to say.
Yeah, just wind up. We'll get another opportunity.
No problem. I think there are issues, and we can work on them from a business perspective, from me, or from a government perspective. But I think it won't come by vilifying every single blogger. It'll come with actually understanding the platforms and not using one person to vilify 15,000 people.
Other people. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I know this is a discussion that cannot end, and of course you have brought a new angle to it, that when we get an opportunity and we can put a team again together, we shall talk about it. Thank you, James Wamadhai from BEC, for your perspective, Samuel Majani, Edwin, for coming, representing the voice of the business community. I know what they do sometimes it's not good. And of course, Mercy, for your perspective from the regulator and for sharing with us. As always, thank you for your comments and participating. I'd like to end with this tweet from Jennings Arguings. He says, "We haven't tapped in full potential of blogging. That leads us to be vulnerable to politicians'